And actually, let me get to my screen. There we go. All right, I'm going to start recording again. There we go. So we were talking about just now the automatic texts that are going out and the responses that we're getting. And what I'm seeing is people that have been on the website forever and a day, we're getting great communication back. I sent out, and you know, what's so funny is we can sit here on the phones and do 100 dials and talk to 3 people, and it's totally normal. But then we send out hundreds of texts. I sent out over 1,000 emails this weekend, and responses were very low. But the responses we got worked, and I'm finding myself going, I'm disappointed because of the lack of responses that I got. But in reality, when you can do it in one shot, it doesn't really matter. And if you're doing it on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, and you're rotating the phone calls and the texts and the emails, at some point, they're either going to unsubscribe or they're going to say, yes, I'm ready. So questions for you all according to responses via text. Hannah, did you guys start the automation yet?
No, I didn't make it public yet. I didn't activate the Newly campaign yet.
Okay. Missy and Allison, what are you seeing as far as the responses that we've been getting to text and emails?
Some of them are kind of like just looking, you know, I just want, you know, if we get some, very few I get, this is a wrong number, and then I can verify that. But a lot of them are just looking, and if I try and respond to them, I don't usually get a response back for a little bit. So
Correct.
it really just depends.
And I'm noticing that as well. And what I've started doing, because people aren't answering their phone, that to me is now that I can move them to contacted and put a text label on them or put an email label on them. And Missy and I were talking about that, and I'm like, we come up with that like a few weeks ago, and it must have been a subliminal thing, because she's like, Bev, let's do a text label and an email label. So it was one of those confirmations of she come up with it completely on her own. We come up with it on our own, and we kind of commingled that and went, yes, we need to be doing that, because then we know how they like to communicate. So when we confirm, because they've responded just looking, well, the reality is great. We just want to know how we can be a resource for you when that time is right. So we don't need to be blowing up their phone. They don't need to be in our call sequence, because we're moving them in the pipeline to, we've got a hold of them, the contacted, and now we know where to put them, but we need to be uber sensitive and make sure that we're going back to the just looking group so that we don't ever miss anything. Because the last week's topic has been all about, I have too many tasks. Now, we don't have to task ourselves if we're paying attention to this label or tag, whatever website you're using, whatever you call it, and we can go back to the just looking people that have only been in the last 5-10 days. Let's look to make sure that they have logged in and reach back out to them, because we have a label. We can reach back out to them on how they responded back to us. So we can say, hey, we got 5 emails out to you. They might be going to spam. Again, just want to be a resource for you, not trying to be compulsive or not trying to be pushy. But that is where I think we may win some people over other websites and over other databases that they may be in. Because we may be going to spam, but what if the other ones are not going to spam? That gives, I look at it as taking the negatives and making it a positive. Because if they are going to spam, that gives us a reason to reach out. And if we potentially catch them at the right time, that increases our chances of becoming more lucky. And that way we're not overtasking ourselves, but that has to be something that we're doing within our day. And like Missy and I were talking on Friday, we're working multiple websites. We have about 5 or 6 websites that we're dialing out of, we're calling out of, and we're working. So the reality is the easier that we can make the job to be able to be corresponding, because the 2 main goals that we are looking to achieve is increase the amount of people that we're contacting in our database, because that is in essence our pipeline. We have to keep our pipeline based on time frame so that we never have that roller coaster effect again. So if we have everybody based on time frame, we have everybody categorized where they're supposed to be categorized. At some point, every single lead in Just Looking, if we do our job right, every single one of those should end up being a client. Now, do people end up looking and then not buying? Absolutely, they do. But that Just Looking is going to be a gold label if we are moving people in there properly and we're paying attention to the emails and paying attention to the texts and paying attention to people that we spoke to. If they don't have an email or a text label, we know that we got a hold of them via phone. But reality is that needs to be our top priority and where we're focusing our time and attention at, because Just Looking today means buying in a year or 2 years. And that is the majority of all the people that we've ever lost in our database. I remember my first ISA, and she was in cleaning up all of the old contacts that kind of fell by the wayside, and so many conversations that she had, we've already purchased, we've already purchased, we've already purchased, because we didn't know how to follow up properly. And even another website that I was in, I'm seeing responses back in 2014, 2015 that have not been touched for a year to 2 years. And I'm making phone calls, already purchased, already purchased. So we need to get past the microwave mentality and really get into that future business and really get into the follow-up mentality, because that is where everything kind of ends up going by the wayside, because we're not paying attention to that Just Looking person. We need to, again, it's falling in love with that process and knowing how to properly follow up with people. And when I'm looking at this one agent's responses to text, I'm like, I'm way overthinking, in my opinion, the responses that I kick back to them. Her responses are just so one-off, and she's getting a lot of text responses. I'm able to move people out of contact. Whenever I went into their P2 this morning, the priority 2, there was only a handful of people in there because everyone's replying to the texts. So it's just really us testing it in every market and figuring out, how do your market area like to communicate? And once we figure that piece of the pie out and we automate, it's huge, because then we can spend more of our time really focusing on who we need to be dialing in the database. And I know in the past we never knew who to dial because we had no organization, but when you've got organization, man, you can go in and work with a purpose, without a doubt. Anybody have anything to add or contribute? Questions? Yeah, no? We got 5 minutes left. We can be done, or we can converse on something else. Anybody need a quick role play? We all done?
Looks like it.
All righty. Have a fabulous day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.